Well, good evening, folks, and welcome back to another edition of our Thursday night virtual Dominion Energy Jazz Café with much love and support from our friends at the Richmond Jazz Society. Tonight, we welcome to our program Ras Mel Glover Jr. and his friends and friends of ours. Ras, if only for the night, the stage is yours. Take it away.
This one is for all the mothers in the house. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high. Your daddy's rich and your mama, she kinda good looking. So hush, pretty darling, down, down, don't you cry. Help me a little bit, bro. Summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high. Your daddy's rich and your mama is good looking. So hush, pretty darling, don't you cry. Don't you cry. And the living is easy. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high. Your daddy's rich and your mama's good looking. So hush, little darling, don't you cry. So hush, little darling, down. Down. Yeah. On the keyboards here. The first lady of keyboards in the state of Virginia, if not the east coast of the United States, the whole United States. Miss Lucy Kilpatrick on the keyboards. Huh? On bass, my longtime friend, Mr. Carter Blough. And introducing to you a person that you don't really need an introduction to, Mr. Neko Williams, who's been playing all across the country for the last, 10 years? Yes, Drummy Zeb's son. Give props, AAE. This next song is going to be Mr. Magic, tribute to Grover Washington. All right?
Ras, friends, thank you so much for that fun first half. Back there jamming, this is one of those nights where you dance on your couch, where you have a cup of tea or whatever you have in your cup, and you love all the ones in the room with you. Ras, while your musicians behind us take a break, would you have a chat with me over here?
No problem.
All right. Ras,
Yes, sir.
thank you so much for that first set.
Man, thank you for having us here and putting up with us, man.
Yeah, putting up is not the right word. I am loving it. It's touching me tonight. I know it's going to keep going. Before we get into a little bit of discussion between the two of us, I'll give you the opportunity to tell the audience who doesn't know who you are exactly who this man is in your own words.
Ras Mel Glover Jr. I was born here in Richmond, St. Philip's Hospital, now called MCV, VCU Hospital. Went to Catholic school here, kindergarten, first, second grade. Third grade, I went to public school over at Maymount. And this is during the days of still segregation. Back of the bus, I remember Sears and Roebuck's had 2 water fountains on the first floor. One was porcelain, and the other one was the brand new refrigerated air condensed, whatever, the fancy new thing, which had ice cold water. And the sign, colored people, white people only. Before the ice cold water machine came, we used to have to go down into the basement to drink out the water fountain. It was still a store down there. I mean, more store, but the colored bathroom, as they call it, was downstairs. So a lot of my growing up came through the transition. I never really experienced white people until my first year of high school.
That long?
Yeah, so like I said, I went to public school for about the 3rd or 4th grade, but I come out of Catholic school with nuns, nuns with rulers and yardsticks. And there was still corporal punishment back then, so teacher had every right to go upside your head. Plus my parents were teachers, so I couldn't do nothing wrong. I couldn't goof up on the way to school, in school, or on the way home. I couldn't goof up till I got to college. Lord, did I goof up, you know? But I was privileged to be around a lot of older musicians. One we were just talking about, Ulysses Kirksey. There was a trumpet player across the street from me named Al Bolin. And then down, at that time I was living in the West End, so I was going to Amelia Street and then Randolph Middle School. On the way home from Randolph Middle School, there was a guitar family. It was one sister and 4 brothers. And they all played guitar for a living. And that was on my way home from school.
Now, is that where the music comes from for you?
Pretty much so. Ulysses Kirksey had a brother named Bobby.
Okay.
And Bobby and I and Debo Dabney, all of us were the same age.
Yes, Debo.
So at Randolph, when I come out the gym door to go home, Debo was already at home because his house was right across the street. And you could hear Debo going, how's the bar piece? And then you go ba da bi bu do ba do do da 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 da, or you go ba bi da da ba da 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 da. But So yeah, all of us grew up together and had like little backyard bands on through high school.
Now, at that time, you, I mean, you were hanging out with all of these people who influence what you're doing. Was it guitar that you pick up first?
Yeah, the guitar. I had an uncle who taught at Armstrong High School, a guy named Box James, athletic director. And during the summer, there was a summer camp in Massachusetts. Now, my mom, during the 60s and 50s, was working on her master's degree. She applied to RPI, Richmond Polytechnical Institute, which is now VCU. She applied, and she was one of the top students in her graduating class at Virginia State. Ironically, side note, one of her classmates was Dr. Billy Taylor, or Billy Taylor then.
Come on.
So, but anyway, she applied to Richmond Polytechnical. They declined. So she ended up going to Columbia. So in the summer, she'd go to Columbia, I'd go to summer camp in Massachusetts. And I had a cousin on Box James's side, Box's side, Aunt Rainey's side, named Skip. Skip was maybe 2 years older than us. And the camp was divided into 2 seasons. Boys' seasons for about 3 weeks, then girls' season. But for some reason, I couldn't go back home after boys' season because my mom's still in school. School doesn't work like that. So I had to stay for part of girls' season. And Skippy had to stay for part, and Tony had to stay for part. So we was all crammed up there. One year, Skip bought a box guitar. I couldn't tell you if it was a Gibson or what, but it was a flat-top guitar, and he used to play it. And I remember one day, I watched him put it in the case and put it under the bunk bed and go out the door. So I went to the door and I looked out, and I could see him off in the distance walking away. And then when I couldn't see him no more, under the bed.
Snatch it on up.
Then I took it and I sat on the front porch. And the camp director lived in the next hut. And I was sitting on the front porch. I didn't know this hand was supposed to do anything. She love you, yeah. I could play everything with just one hand. And the director walked by and said, yeah, Melvin, how you doing today? Yes, sir, Mr. He walked away. And I'd be, and then off in the distance, I saw Skippy coming back. Went back in, put it on the bed. Now, the irony is now, Skippy is an instructor, a guitar instructor at Berkeley in Boston.
Oh, my goodness.
So that's how close I came to greatness.
We're talking about close.
Yeah, I got closer, but yeah. But yeah.
I'd say it's greatness on this stage with me tonight. I really am feeling that. I'm watching you play that guitar and lead these musicians who come together to join you tonight.
Well,
sing through these melodies as if they're coming right out of you.
Those are seasoned musicians, man. One thing a lot of the older folks used to tell me is surround yourself with the best you can. And then you gotta stretch on out. You can't get comfortable, you gotta stretch. One time I was in Australia, and I had a couple of days off, and I met this woman who said she was a DJ. And I said, I'm thinking radio DJ. I said, well, what kind of music do you do? She said, I do jazz.
Okay.
I said, okay. So she invited me to her house, and on the way in, she says, would you like to go to one of my gigs? I'm like, gig? You play jazz? On a gig? She said, yeah, at a club. A club? Like nightclub? She said, yeah. Would you like to come? Better still, would you like to play? And I'm like, jazz? In Australia? I can't remember if it was Sydney or Melbourne, but it's one of the big cities. So I said, yeah. So now we go in a house, and there's a wall, just records from the floor to the ceiling. Floor to the ceiling. All four walls. I'm going like, wow. Dexter Gordon, Duke Ellington, 1948. What they call them, the 78s. This woman had it all. I'm going like, and you play jazz? She said, yeah, I'm a jazz DJ. Not at a radio station, at a club. So she made a call, and she got a bass player, another guitar player, and a drummer. And I can't remember if there was a horn player or not. I don't think so. And asked them if they would like to play with me. They said, yeah. So we got together. The night of the show, they sent a car for me and everything to the hotel. I was like, yo, look at this. I fall up into the club. The club is jam-packed. I was probably the last person that could walk into this club. That's how dense it was. From the bar, everywhere, people just, So she pulled me to the side, introduced me to the musicians. I pulled out a sheet of paper, wrote down 12 songs. And I said, you know this, you know this, you know this, you know this. Book key, done it in. They're like, yeah. And they said, look here, Mike. We're going to play a few tunes and then we'll bring you up. So I'm like, okay. They play a few tunes and wait a minute, pinch myself. I am in Australia, right? Why does this sound like I'm in New York? Sounds just like Harlem. I mean, it's,
Who are these people?
yeah, and then they call me up on the stage and I'm like, call out the first song. And I figure I'm from the U.S., man. I play guitar and I invented this stuff, you know? I just, man, them boys put a hurting on me.
They say we got something for you tonight.
Yes, sir. And they say, you sit back if you want to. And I'm like, all right.
You know, sometime it happened like that. I think you walk into a room you don't know what to expect, and you better learn something. One of the best things I learned, I'm still learning. One of the greatest lessons was to let people educate you. If you don't know something, you don't know it. Ask for the education.
Yeah, I think what I came away with was, don't ever think that you can just sit back and just cruise along and it'll be all right.
Good as you are, if there's one of you, there's another one.
No, if there's one of me, there's a million more.
Yes, sir. That's, I mean, gold is gold, but there's a lot of it.
Yep.
Now, this experience in Australia, I toured Australia when I was 16. I remember Sydney and Melbourne well. Does this happen before or after you get to Carnegie Hall?
Oh man, this was way after Carnegie Hall.
Well, okay.
Carnegie Hall, I was a junior in college down in Hampton. And my last Australia tour, I came off the road in 2016. So I played with the Whalers from about 2001 up to 2016. And never as a child, embarking on that journey was something I never could conceive of as a kid. And kids had aspirations, you know. I was telling you about Ulysses Kirksey.
Yes.
Every Saturday, Ulysses would come out his back door, out his back gate of his yard, down the alley, now he's in plain view of my house, walk down Appomattox Street to Allen Avenue to catch the Riverview 10 to go to his cello lessons. Year after year after year until he graduated from Maggie Walker High School under the tutelage of Joe Kennedy, because Joe Kennedy was the band director there then. And then you had, and man, you open up a can of worms. But when I went to high school, I moved from the west and the north side. So it's a different environment. And I never saw, we call him Junie, but I'd never seen Ulysses again. After college, I was in D.C. I was playing with Plunky and Juju, and there was a house in D.C. called a guy from PFW, Jimmy Gray. And Jimmy Gray, I don't know how to even put this. Jimmy Gray had the avant-garde radio show at PFW.
All right.
That means everything to the right or to the left or center is what he played.
All right.
From, what's the man's name? Sun Ra
Yes.
to Archie Shep. If you never heard it, he got it.
Yeah.
But we used to stay at that house when we go to D.C. It was back in the days when they called it barnstormers.
Uh-huh.
So musicians would go from town to town, but we stay at certain people's houses. We couldn't afford the hotel, and certain days you couldn't stay in a Holiday Inn because it wasn't for us. Yeah?
Had to have your green book.
Yep. I remember the Green Book, man.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say this, but I am so grounded to the earth now. I remember when to get to New York City, you had to take 360 or 60 or something up to Northern Virginia, and then you could catch 95. But there was no 95. No, it was Route 6. Route 6. You take Route 6 from Richmond straight on up, and then you pop out Northern Virginia, go across the 14th Street Bridge or whatever to get to D.C. But, and I remember there was no such thing as 64 East. So we used to go to a place called Bayshore Beach, which historically is gone now. But there was a fence. Bayshore was the black people beach. Black hotel, black entertainment center, black lifeguards, black restaurant, the whole thing. On the other side of the fence was the white people's Buckrow Beach, which they had the Ferris wheel, the roller coaster, and we used to just sit on the side and go like, wow, look at that, look at that. And finally integration came along when I was in high school, and one of my last family vacations was my parents getting a motel room on the Buckrow Beach side. In fact, last time I was there a few years ago, that motel was the only surviving building on that whole strip.
Man, I needed to have you here when we were running the Edward Hopper and the American Hotel exhibition. Talk about these stories.
Yeah, man. But, yeah, but getting back to Ulysses Kirksey, I'm in D.C. at Jimmy Gray's house, and I'm going through some albums. Now, Plunky worked for a booking agency in D.C. Can't remember the label, but one of the artists was Lonnie Liston Smith.
Okay.
Another artist was, man, this is crazy. Saxophone player. Man, I can't think of the guy's name. From Baltimore. Oh, man, he gonna kill me.
It's gonna come to you when you don't need it.
Yeah. But he's like one of my elders. But Hugh Masekela was in that booking agency. One of the acts of that booking agency. Plunky, Gil Scott.
Okay.
And Brian Jackson.
Jackson.
Roy Ayers was on with that booking agency. So it was a lot of times you might come to a festival or a college gig with all of them 3 or 4 acts together. Norman Connors was on that label. Norman Connors, and his vocalist name was Gene Carn. And I was at Jimmy's house fumbling through the albums. I saw, oh, Norman Connors, And then I started reading down the credits. And then teeny weeny writing. It said orchestration arranged and conducted by Ulysses Kirksey.
No, it didn't.
And I'm going like, wow. Now what shocked me was, this is Norman Connor's smooth jazz evolution, right? Still got some jazz and some Afro in it, but it's that transitional music. And here go Ulysses Kirksey, who I always knew as a so I was like, wow. Years later, I'm playing at this club in Richmond. It was called Ras Café, under the tutelage of Dr. Ralph Branch.
Doc Branch.
And we call this the Dr. Ralph Branch School of Music.
Okay.
Yeah. And we had Friday and Saturday nights in there. There's 2 nights. And Bruce Willis would come in with his harmonica, because blues night was Thursday night, Terry Garland. So musicians would come to Ras Café, corner of Meadow and Broad, from New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore and D.C., Norfolk, and maybe some came up from North and South Carolina for the weekend to play at that place.
Meadow and Broad.
Meadow and Broad Street.
Used to be?
Huh?
Did it become Emilio's?
Yeah, it became Emilio's
spot,
eventually.
yes.
Yeah, that spot.
They were still doing that for a little while.
Yeah, but as the years went on, instead of Saturday and Sundays, it got cut back to Saturday and Sunday. Friday and Saturday, it got cut back to just Fridays.
Yeah, that's how I knew it.
But going back to Ulysses, his brother and I both got guitars at the same time, but his brother played trumpet. So he was in the school band. So he was learning the notes on the staff and all of that. I was just sitting at home with the radio going, I steal my mother's records and while they were going, and Ulysses, I think he may have gone to Juilliard.
Okay.
Then after Juilliard, he went to study the cello over in London, I believe. And he spent years in London, then he came back, and then he was, is there such a thing as assistant conductor?
Well, no. There's something for you to do, but they wouldn't call it assistant conductor.
I think for
Concert master or something?
I think for a minute he had something to do with the Richmond Symphony. And then he went to Petersburg and he had the Petersburg Symphony. Now, mind you, I see him and then like 30 years I don't see him again. Then 20 years I see him, then don't see him again. So the last time I saw him was in Ras Café or Emilio's, sitting up in the corner. And he says, man, I don't see how you do it. I looked at him and I could recognize him immediately. I said, Doc, how you doing, man? I ain't seen you since we was like, I said, I don't understand how you guys can stand up there and play and not read it. That as opposed to reading the score.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, Doc, man, you the doctor, so you ought to know. The funny thing about him was, outside of my parents' record collection, in high school, his record collection was like a library. And one day he sat his brother and I down and said, listen to this. And he played this record of a guitar player. And I looked at the cover, oh man, I like this because this guy's playing a Gibson Super 400. Yeah, okay, yeah. And he put it on, this was about 1964, 65. And then the guy was playing and ding dong dong. And the guy's name was Larry Coryell and the 11th House, which and John McLaughlin was one of his contemporaries.
Okay.
I didn't understand nothing. I couldn't make heads and tails. Junior, I don't like that. I don't like that. So I said, okay. Next album he put on that made me get up and leave the house was Thelonious Monk Live Underground.
Oh, Monk.
Yeah, Monk. I'd never heard of Monk. Up to this point, my whole life had been Sarah Vaughan, Duke Ellington, Wes Montgomery. Is what I grew up with. You know,
That's gonna shock you if that's all you know.
Yeah, man. I heard Monk. I'm like, whoo. I hear my mama calling me, Junior. I gotta go. I got
Street
to
lights
go home.
can come on.
Yeah, but and playing with Juju, Plunky and them, really exposed me to. I remember Plunky and the Runners of Juju playing in D.C. at a place called the Warehouse for 2 nights. And the Warehouse was a place where downstairs you could buy a 50-pound bag of rice, a sack of whole wheat flour, apple cider, because they stock all the health food stores up and down the East Coast. Upstairs was like kind of a loft. And this 2 nights that we played there, we were the opening act for Sun Ra and the Solar Orchestra.
Come on.
Now, having said that was about 75, 76. Having said that, the first time I saw Sun Ra was the summer of 1969 at the last Hampton Jazz Festival, which was at the football field of Hampton Institute. It was the last Hampton Jazz Festival. After that, Earl Wynn came in, took control, and moved it into the Coliseum. It was 3 days. I saw George Benson Quartet. I saw Nina Simone. I saw Miles Davis. Sly and the Family Stone was the headliner of the last night. And one particular day, Sun Ra and the Solar Orchestra was there. And they came out on stage, and I was like, Sun Ra played, and it's a sold-out football stadium. Sun Ra hit one note on his farfisa. Everybody in the audience stood up. Sonny played the second note, and everybody left. Just left, boom. I would have gone too, but I was in a class called Jazz Workshop, and I was on the side. I had to write a critique or article or paper on the festival, you know, so I couldn't go. But he went boom, I was like, and everybody else was up. He hit the second note, boom. I was like, this is part of class. I can't go nowhere.
I sit right here.
I sit right here. So I sat through that. Having said that, maybe 3 to 4 years later, here I am after the first show. The workers would come through and clean the floor out, clean the place up in the loft. And we slept on that floor for 2 nights. 2 nights in a row, I slept next to Sun Ra.
Touring's not always glamorous, but you're going to meet somebody.
Hey, now fast forward that. I'm in something like The Hague, getting ready to fly into Copenhagen. But I'm sitting in the terminal, and they had a grand piano up there. And people would come by and just play. Then all of a sudden, the piano was like, I'm like, damn, who that? Then a whole bunch of black guys came down the steps, because our gate was at the bottom of this thing. And I looked at them and said, you guys are a band, aren't you? And they said, yeah, you guys are a band too. Where y'all going? We're going to Copenhagen. Where y'all going? We're going to Copenhagen too. What? And so I said, what band you play with? I play with the Wailers. What? You play with the Wailers? Where y'all playing at in Copenhagen? We're playing on such and such. Yeah. I said, who y'all? We Sun Ra. I'm like, man.
I'm thinking I would have paid just about any amount of money to see Sun Ra and Plunky and Oneness Juju playing the same concert.
Saying that, not only that, in a room that held like 50 people, with no tables and chairs. But if you think I've got a slither of talent, a slither of ability, you should hang with the people I hang with.
You tell me when. Please.
That's the thing about it. I never know. I never know. There's a guitar player named Mark Whitfield. Mark, ironically, his mother's from Richmond.
Okay.
Right? And I saw him play on BET, and I saw another guitarist named Rodney Jones play on BET. But I knew Rodney Jones because Wonders of Juju was the opening act for Dizzy Gillespie at UMass in Boston. Right? So
share this day with Dizzy.
with Dizzy's band, Dizzy didn't have a keyboard player. It was Mickey Rooker on drums, Benjamin Franklin on bass, Rodney Jones on guitar, and then Dizzy and maybe a saxophone player, Sam Jones, I think. But no piano. And Plunky's band, we didn't have a piano. We had vibes and guitar. So that whole period of being with Plunky then was how to make this guitar sound like take the space of a piano.
Right.
Rodney was playing, and Rodney was the first cat that I've seen do this. I'm standing right next to him going, yeah, one of these, one of them, one of them. And afterward we talked. Rodney gave me his phone number, and he said, look, I'll show you all of that. Here's my address in New York, you just come on up. I'm like, all right. Now, years later, I'm watching BET, and I see Rodney Jones on BET, and then I see Mark Whitfield on BET. And then I had a dream that I was gonna go somewhere and study from somebody, or somebody was gonna like say, yo, come with me, spend some time, and I'll show you what I do. So the two people in the dream was Mark Whitfield and Rodney Jones. I said, well, woke up, remember the dream, let me investigate. Turns out that James Gates, who was here a couple of weeks ago,
Yes.
went to Berkeley. He was in his graduating class with Mark Whitfield.
All right.
Mark's wife at that time went to Gates and said, my boyfriend plays guitar, but all he wants to do is play that rock and roll thing. That's all he want to do. Can you please? So somewhere or another, as students, they pooled it and they brought Mark in, and Mark became the Mark Whitfield. So Gates said, yeah, I know Mark. Check with me in a few days and I'll get you his phone number and you can call him. I'm like, so I waited for Gates, bless his heart, and I waited, and I waited. Then I said, well, okay, let me try something else. So I knew he was living in Baton Rouge. So I called Baton Rouge information. I'd like the number for Mr. Mark Whitfield. The number ends 919-202-76. Thank you very much. Phone rings, the guy answers. I said, I'd like to speak to Mr. Mark Whitfield. And the guy said, this is Mark Whitfield. Like, you don't sound like Mark Whitfield, the guitar player. I said, no, I'm Mark Whitfield, the lawyer. But if you call information for Baton Rouge again, and you ask for Mark Whitfield, not the lawyer, you'll get the guitar player's number. I got the number, I called the number. Mark's wife at that time answered, said he's on tour. Who are you? I said, well, I'm Ras Mel, and I was interested in taking some lessons from him. She said, where are you at? I said, I'm in Richmond, Virginia. She said, Ras, you know where we live in Baton Rouge? You willing to come from Richmond to Baton Rouge to study guitar? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, okay, look here. When he comes back from tour, I'm gonna give him this message. And you call back in about 4 or 5 days. He'll be back home. So I called back, and he answered. And I'm like, yeah, this is Ras Mel Glover, Richmond. He said, yeah, man, my wife told me. You want to come take some lessons? I said, yeah. He said, you know where we live? I said, yes, sir. You live in Baton Rouge. And you gonna come down here? But anyway, short story, that's how I got to, with Mark. Now I'm hanging with Mark in Baton Rouge. And one night he says, look, we got an option. My band, because I was on tour, they had to, fend for themselves. And they're playing at a club right here in Baton Rouge. And we can go there and listen to them. Hell, we can take our axes and sit in. He said, nah, we can do that. But Ellis Marsalis called me, and he wants me to come to New Orleans and play with him tonight. So it's your choice. We can go hear my band, or we can go to New Orleans. You won't be able to play now. I thought we were playing. Now, you ain't gonna be able to play. You're not gonna be able to play. But, you get to meet Ellis and Ellis Marsalis that used to teach here. And this is years after he left here. And I'm going like, wow, okay, all right. He says, but I don't feel like doing that drive. To get from Baton Rouge, you got the bridge, the Ponciana, something or another. It's like 2 hours to get across the bridge. That's not real, but it's a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, I don't feel like driving. No. So we ended up listening to his band, which was cool too, because I was hearing music. I had to go, yo, what's that? That progression. He said, oh, yeah, you need to listen to so-and-so and so-and-so and so. That whole being with him just snowballed into a whole nother thing, to where I was flying out to Richmond, he was flying to New York, and then there was a guy named Wes that was sitting up in there with us. So when we came, he said, Ras Mel, this is Wes so-and-so. They began talking to each other. And I'm the fly on the wall. I'm going, the guy says, yeah, Mark, where you going? Mark said, man, I got to go to New York. And we're going on tour for about 7 weeks. Man, I don't want to do it. But I got to go. I don't want to do it, but I got to go. Boy says, well, who you playing with? I said, man, the Jimmy Smith thing. What? You got 6, you don't want to, and you just came out, that's where you was when up, Jimmy Smith and you, oh man. So they said, Wes, what you doing? Wes said, man, I got 2 months at the Lincoln Center in New York. I'm going to Lincoln Center. This dude played alto. And the Lincoln Center is jazz. New York jazz. Yeah, the real stuff. And then Wes said, man, I'll be there for 2 months. I don't want to do it. He get ready to go play with Wynton Marsalis.
I mean, that's also a good gig.
I don't want to do it. And for years and years and years, I was like, I don't understand it. Until one time, I was getting ready to fly somewhere. And I was like, man, I'm going to be gone for like 3 months. Then I come home for like 2 weeks, and then I'm gone again. Don't want to do it. Don't want to do it.
Well, I'll tell you, that is a storied career that leads to a lot of education. Mr. Glover, here I sit in front of you, nothing but clay. If ever you have something to teach me in front of a microphone on stage with you, I will humbly stand back and learn from your mind and the minds around you. We've got another half of a concert. Do you think you've got another few songs in you?
Yeah, I think we can put something together.
I'll look forward to it. and I know the folks do at home. Thank you so much. And
Thank-
will you come back?
Thanks again. Yeah, I'd love to come back just to make up for what we did today.
Please, sir. Please, we're going to do it again.
I think I'll try to invite somebody.
Please. Whoever you got up your sleeve.
All right, cool.
All right,
We
sir.
enjoyed it. Thanks a
I'm
lot.
looking forward to the next set.
It's Lucy Kilpatrick on the keyboards. Carter Blough on the upright bass. Neko Williams on the drums. My name, Ras Mel Glover Jr. Love, one lonely day, looking to stay. Green Dolphin Street provides a setting for nights beyond forgetting. And these moments apart, love stays in our heart. As I recall the times I've had on, I can kiss the ground on Green Dolphin Street. Green Dolphin Street. Miss Lucy Kilpatrick. provide the setting, a setting for nights beyond forgetting. And these moments abroad, memories stay in my heart as I recall the times I kissed the ground down, I kissed the ground down, I kissed the ground down, the ground down. Little tiny tropical island down in the Caribbean, little tiny street. What did I say we were going to do next, Lucy?
From another island, I think.
My brother from another mother. Okay. Let's go on and do Softly as a Morning Sunrise. Softly as a morning sunrise. Two. Softly as the morning sunrise, sunset. Yeah. A while back, I had the privilege of playing with a group called AAE. Then I had the privilege of playing with a group called Ras Mel and RMA. Before all of that, I had the privilege of playing with Plunky and the Oneness of Juju. So after AAE and myself came Mr. Eddie Grant. And after Eddie Grant, there came it was I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot no deputy. I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot no deputy. All along in my hometown, you see, them trying to shoot me down. They say they want to find I'm guilty for the life of a deputy, for the shooting of a deputy. And I say, Okay. That sound like Donald Trump. All right. Okay. We're going to close it out right now with a little F. Something in F. Lucy Kilpatrick on the piano. Carter Blough on the bass. Carter Blough. On the drum, from the east end of Virginia, of Richmond, Virginia, Mr. Neko Williams. We'd like to thank the Richmond Jazz Society, the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, again, Miss Lucy Kilpatrick, Mr. Carter Blough, Mr. Neko Williams. My name is Ras Mel Glover Jr., and on behalf of the group and the museum and the Jazz Society, we'd like to say thank you.
Mr. Ras Mel, I'm going to tell you, I woke up this morning and I didn't feel good. I woke up ugly inside, I think. And that stayed with me all day until a little over an hour ago. Thank you for that.
I had the same feeling.
I'm glad we came together then. I am. Folks at home, I mean it when I say I needed this. And so I offer it to you. We offer it to you for when you need it next, because I know you needed it tonight. Thank you, Richmond Jazz Society, for your partnership here. Thank you, Dominion Energy, for your support here. And thank you all at home for loving with us. Thank you for listening to us. And thank you for learning from us. And so from the stage at the Leslie Cheek Theater in the Virginia Museum, of Fine Arts, this has been the virtual Dominion Energy Jazz Cafe. As always, I am Robert Bernard. Good night.